right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Bob Pompeani here, taking your phone calls at 412-575-2600. If you prefer X, all you have to do is hit us up at KDPomp, at the Pony Express. Andrew Fillipponi up at 93.7 The Fan. I want to begin with the Penguins because I think they're developing into one of the more interesting stories. They have the third fewest regulation losses in the Eastern Conference, Andrew, and tonight they began a 4-game road trip, and they do what they've been doing pretty consistently. You know, tied for second in the Metro. They're just 3 points out of first with 2 games in hand, so a pretty good story developing with the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, I mean, they've changed their roster a little bit because of some of the guys you mentioned, Brazeau, Mantha, Wotherspoon, all those guys got on the score sheet tonight, which is good. But to me, this is an example of how and why you don't just stick with a coach because of how many championships he's won or what his resume is. And Mike Sullivan had a tremendous coaching career in Pittsburgh, but come on now, they had not won a playoff series since 2017, 1 year better than the Steelers drought. And they were living off of that. It's an unbelievable era of Penguins hockey. We get that. They won back-to-back cups. But they were not doing much in the latter stages of Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang's career. So I applaud them, and I know it's very similar to the Steelers in that Sullivan seemed to leave on his own volition. He didn't get fired. He found a better job with the Rangers, and we see what they're doing now in a worse position than the Penguins,
last in the conference.
Turns out. But right, so I bring that up because to me, there were a lot of people around hockey, not in Pittsburgh so much, but around hockey that said, man, you can't just let Mike Sullivan walk out the door like that. The Penguins are losing a good coach. I think a new voice has made this team a lot better. It's a breath of fresh air, and I can see the same thing happening with the Steelers now in this coaching search.
Yeah, that's a good comparison, I think, but also, you know, it's about, I think, the willingness of a young guy who's coming in here knowing that the pressure's somewhat off, you know, can play 4 lines. And they put together a really good 4th line. They call it the Lad line now with Lizotte, who just got paid another extension, and it's modestly priced. I think you're going to see Dewar get one as well because he's been outstanding, and Achari has been that's a really good line. They can score, too. So if you get that, and he's not afraid to play them, they get a lot of minutes, whereas under Mike Sullivan, the 4th line rarely got more than 6 minutes a game, it seemed. And he was, you know, wearing out some of the guys who would get 25 minutes a night. I don't think that's the right way to go. And these guys now have come in and taken in and embraced that opportunity to play.
And he didn't like young guys, which was ironic because he won a Stanley Cup. Won 2 Stanley Cups with young guys. I don't think Kindle would have been, under Mike Sullivan, such a featured part of their lineup here. He probably would have been sent back down the juniors. He would not have been the revelation that he was early in the season for the Penguins. So it's a very good spot to be in. They got themselves out of the Jari contract. I like the way Skinner's played lately. Kulak had a goal tonight. So the Penguins are trending in the right direction. They've got all those picks in the next few drafts, too. Not a lot of first-rounders, but a lot of depth picks. And I think Dubas's vision is maybe coming to fruition here, where he's not just trying to build a team that sneaks into the playoffs. He's trying to build a contender in the long term.
All right, the other big news of the day here was that Coach McDermott in Buffalo is no more. And you know, it's funny how this works because I thought that game the other night in Denver should have gone to Buffalo. I didn't like a lot of what I saw at the end of that game.
And Josh Allen didn't play a good game.
Right.
Okay, so to me, on the list of problems with that loss, Sean McDermott was way down the line. So I think he gets scapegoated there. He's won a playoff game in 6 straight years. He's won 8 playoff games, which is the same number as Tomlin. He did it in 9. Tomlin did it in 19. Mm-hmm. Now, Tomlin's got 2 Super Bowl appearances and a Super Bowl win. But the one thing I completely disagree with people on who have said, okay, good riddance, Sean McDermott, this was not a good roster. They've got a great quarterback. They've got a heck of a running back. And they've got a couple of good offensive linemen. I think the wide receiver position might have been worse than the Steelers, to be honest with you, because they don't have DK Metcalf there. And that defense really was held together with bubble gum and chicken wire. I mean, they're playing old timers, guys that were on the team 10 years ago, and Tre'Davious White and and Hoyer and Poyer and Hyde and these guys, like, to me, they had names, but they were guys that were well past their prime. And so to get to this position, I give him credit. I thought he did a good coaching job this year, Bob.
Yeah, and I thought Brandon Beane should not have been promoted. He was the guy who probably is responsible for a lot of what they didn't have.
I agree.
And yet he gets a promotion. It's very stunning to me that it happened this way. I thought he'd done well enough in Jacksonville with this game, and if they had won that game, this obviously would not have happened.
Do you think he gets an interview here now? What's your theory on that?
I don't have one on that. So far, he hasn't obviously been. I think I'll probably go in another direction. He is very close to Mike Tomlin. They went to William & Mary. They coached together. They're probably similar in their beliefs. I just think they're looking for a new start with someone younger who's been in this game as an up-and-coming, whether it's defensive or offensive.
Well, then why are we talking to Mike McCarthy this week, Bob? What's the point of that?
I mean, it's probably just a courtesy thing, or maybe just trying to pick his brain a little bit. I don't know. I'm in favor of talking to more than less people. I want to see as many as I can, and who knows what you can extract from those. We're up against a break. We'll take it right now, Andrew. When we come back, phone lines are open to you. It's 412-575-2600. Call us, air your opinions right here, right now on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. This is our Xfinity tweet of the night from Jeremy Fowler, ESPN. Talking about the winning percentages of those coaches who are no longer coaching. 662, 628, 614, tenure becoming a thing of the past. Well, those guys have been there all for a long time, and they've had a lot of success, except in bigger games, and I think that's what ultimately happens. I just don't understand Buffalo necessarily, though. I really don't. I looked at this and said, if there is a problem, it's with the roster. Now, I don't know, maybe you do, Pony, how much input McDermott had. Unlike what we see here in Pittsburgh, where I thought a lot of this was Mike Tomlin, he had the final say. Not that he always agreed with everyone or changed or whatever. He had the final say. We have a poll up, by the way, KDKA.com/connect, which NFL head coach is the best remaining of the 8. Bills, Ravens, which of these jobs? Bills, Ravens, Steelers. So, but I don't know how much McDermott had in putting together that roster. I think it was more Brandon Beane doing most of the acquisitions. It wasn't him so much. At least I never heard that. What was your take on it?
Yeah, I think there was friction there. I don't think those guys saw eye to eye. I think it was a power struggle here, and Beane ended up being the guy that came out on top. I don't think that they were going to run it back after 9 years with Josh Allen and not 9 years with Allen, but 9 years together in Buffalo, without being able to get past the championship round and get to a Super Bowl. So somebody was going to be the guy that had their head on a chopping block, and I guess the GM won out. Sean McDermott, to me, we're going to see here because, it's easy for people to draw the conclusion, and I get it. Well, he was a byproduct of Josh Allen. But people forget he ended their playoff drought in Buffalo before Allen even got there.
Yes.
He turned that franchise around. They made the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor. The week before the Steelers got upset by Blake Bortles in the playoffs, Jacksonville beat Buffalo, and Buffalo was quarterbacked by Tyrod Taylor in that game. So that's what he was able to do there in terms of instilling a winning culture, something that hadn't been done since the mid-'90s with Marv Levy. It had been that long, really, since the Bills had any success. So he should land on his feet somewhere. I also think he did a pretty good job of hiring coordinators. Brian Daboll became the head coach of the Giants. Joe Brady is getting head coaching interviews and will get a coordinator's job somewhere else after this. So if you're going to be a defensive coach, you got to be able to find offensive coaches. And McDermott did a pretty good job of that there. And
now, so much so that it looks like Brian Daboll, at least in many circles, is the leading candidate to take over the Buffalo Bills, which would be interesting.
Wow.
I don't know what to think about all this. And I also think I'm going to stick to my Chris Shula coming to Pittsburgh kind of thing, even though they have to wait in person to talk to him until after the Rams and the Seahawks play. But do you have any gut feeling about who you think has the leading candidate spot right now? Because I think it's Shula.
Yeah, the scary thing about Shula is he's also interviewed for the Ravens job. And what happens if you wait until this NFC Championship game to interview him in person, and he also wants the Ravens job, and he picks the Ravens over the Steelers? What do you do then? If some of these other guys you like what if Brian Flores takes the Raiders job in the meantime or something like that? I do think a scenario exists where the Steelers' number one candidate ends up going to another job, either Buffalo or Baltimore, because I think for sure Buffalo right now is a better job because of Josh Allen. I don't know about Baltimore, though, because I'm not convinced as things stand right now that it's 100% locked that Lamar Jackson's going to be their quarterback, for the next 10 years. And I'm not even sure if you'd want that if you were taking that job based on some of their playoff failures and some of the things that went on there last year with his injury and not playing that well. So who knows, Bob? I do think it's still the Steelers' job is still a great job because you're going to have the patience and you're going to have the supportive ownership, which is huge.
Yeah, no question about it. I also wonder down deep if Harbaugh knew that this job would come open, or if Kevin Stefanski knew that other job would come open, would they have taken their jobs?
And look, I think one of the other things that happened today is Hafley goes to Miami. Now, Hafley coached here at Pitt, and his wife is from here too. I think he met her when he was coaching at Pitt. So that was kind of interesting. And I understand that the Dolphins GM came from Green Bay, but I thought he might at least do an in-person interview with the Steelers.
Yeah, he got a virtual one, but no in person.
Right.
So
and see how close he might be to this job. Bob, they got to be the leaders in the clubhouse to get Malik Willis now, don't you think? With all the Green Bay people that are going to Miami.
And since he had some success there, I would think so. We'll see. We got our number one Cochran Go One Better caller of the night tonight. It's Keith and Shaler. Hello, Keith. How are you?
Hey, Bob. I just wonder why we're not hearing the name Clint Kubiak. He's had a lot of success in San Francisco. He's done a marvelous job with the Seahawks at this point, yet he's not even on their list.
Well, Clay is. I thought Clint Kubiak would be a good choice. And I'm not so sure that he's not in their mix. I don't know if you have to go through virtual first to get an in-person, or you just get an in-person.
I know some people that know him. I'm not going to name them right now, but people could probably connect the dots if they did any homework. And I've heard that he is a very, very bright coaching mind, but there are some questions about his ability to get in front of a room and command an entire roster. That he's not necessarily the most engaging personality in the world, Bob. And look, I mean, they had Mike Tomlin and Bill Cowher before that. We know how much Art values the interviews and the leadership thing. And you can be a great coordinator and not a very good head coach. Dick LeBeau's an example of that. So who knows? Maybe they think that Kubiak just does not have some of those qualities, Bob, that are required to go from coordinator to head coach.
Josh McDaniels, another good example of that. Let's go to Brian.
Right.
Brian in Castle Shannon's up right now. Hey, Brian.
Gentlemen, I hope you're having a good evening here, and thank you for having me on. I have one question to run by you, which apparently has never come up over the last few weeks, or at least 2 weeks. On Bob Nutting, how come it's never come up, the possibility of him buying the Post-Gazette? I know that's not the greatest for sports.
Well, there are people I'm sure might be interested. He's been in that business for a long time. I also think he knows where it's headed. But in order to keep it going, if you have a lot of money, I would imagine someone who does have deep pockets would be involved to try to keep that afloat.
Yeah. Well, let's hope so. I mean, it's great to have the sports coverage and content that we get from a newspaper like that. And I think that we work with a lot of the people over there on our shows.
I don't want to see anyone lose a job either because of it.
Yeah, a lot of them have become great friends. Yeah. So they're open until May. Let's hope they do stay open longer than that.
We'll take a break on that note. Call us, 412-575-2600 nightly, right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Well, after a defensively played first half, all of a sudden points are coming up in the College Football National Championship. 24-21, Malachi Toney just scored for Miami after Fernando Mendoza got a 5-yard touchdown run. So Pony, this over and under of 46, I thought it would be under based on how it started. Now it's approaching the over range, and the point spread's interesting too. What do you think happens 6 minutes left in the game?
Well, I haven't been watching it because we've been talking to each other over the last 20 minutes. You're right, though. Before we came on the air together, it looked like Indiana was having a hard time protecting Mendoza. He was getting knocked around in this game with that great Miami front. This was really a low-scoring kind of game that could really change on any play. I mean, I thought when Indiana blocked that punt and scored a touchdown off of it, that was going to really be the play that led them to victory, the catalyst for them. But from the looks of things, or from what you just said, it looks like Miami keeps bouncing back here and keeping themselves in the game.
We're going down to the bitter end. We'll talk about it tomorrow, I'm sure. Thanks, Pony. Appreciate your time. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Bet, Bob.
That's going to do it for us. Thank you for joining us here, and we do it again 7 nights a week. Call us. Air your opinions on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Have a good rest of your Monday.